we're going to be chill with those phones, right?
David,
Yes.
is it possible to redirect the light?
Well, how can, what do you want to do?
Down, you mean?
Yeah,
Or moving?
Towards this way?
yeah, the people.
Straight down?
Yeah, especially that one near
Kathy,
you.
there's a lot of people in there. Right?
Yeah,
Well, maybe that's a possibility. Yes. Yes. Which way?
So short.
Patrick, I got it. Yeah. This way?
very good, yeah.
How you doing, John? Got too much?
And this one here, to the left there.
Like this?
No, the other way, to the left chair.
You didn't tell them you got it like that, I should have.
Yeah, good,
I didn't get a chance to ask.
very good. That one go over that way.
Which way? This one?
Yeah, the one that's shining towards me, down towards him. Be perfect then. Good, okay,
So, that's good?
that's good.
So, are we ready to roll now? Okay, just water here. We have our anonymous display. Does anyone want to display anything else? We have our anonymous display. Does anyone-
Tell Patrick to, David's pass up on John
Okay, we're going to begin. And are we rolling? Are we rolling?
Yeah,
Just say when.
you got it.
When? Okay, are you rolling, Sheila? This. You got it, okay. Okay, this is the UMBRA Arts Summer Institute 1999. This is the panel that we're doing. We're talking about the book business. We're talking about the American book business, especially in relationship, as it were recently, lately, not so lately, to Europe. And we have a panel of very interesting, distinguished people. You'll notice that we're all African American. We're going to have to represent for people of color and radical progressive people, or all the people who've been left out of the mainstream, so to speak. But this has often been the case with black people anyway, so it's nothing new. On my direct left here is Steve Cannon, who is producing this Summer Institute with UMBRA. Steve Cannon is the CEO, founder of a Gathering of the Tribes organization. They publish Tribes magazine and run Tribe Gallery, among other things, in which we are in Tribe Gallery now, with a lot of beautiful artwork on the wall. This is Steve Cannon. He's the author of Groove Bang and Jive Around, and he is also the editor-in-chief of Tribes magazine. To my left, to Steve's left, is the most distinguished novelist, John A. Williams. Was published many novels and many nonfiction books of writing. Most recently, Clifford's Song. I'm sorry.
Blues.
So there you go. Clifford's Blues is his most recent book from Coffee House Press. He is also the author of The Man Who Cried I Am and a novel called Night Song. And I hope I'm not wrong again. This is the novel that talks about the musician downtown in Charlie Parker. Is that correct? Thank goodness. Night Song.
Go with your best.
Okay.
Now that we're celebrating Bird.
Yes, that's right. This is we're going to culminate this Summer Arts Institute, the Summer Arts Institute with the Charlie Parker Jazz Festival. Of course, the bigger culmination personally is going to be the Gathering of the Tribes event on the 26th of August. It's going to be a reception and party in honor of Charlie Parker with the House of Blue Lights installation and the Sunrise Orchestra directed by Marshall Allen. Okay, to John A. Williams' left is Sherry Thomas, who is a new author and a new editor and a new literary editor of a publication, a magazine called Anansi, which you can see over there. It's our only display, as should be. She's also the editor of a book of speculative black fiction called Dark Matters, which is going to be published sometime in July of 2000. Sherry Thomas.
You don't be getting that mixed up with no shirt on, boy.
It's a cartoon character.
Right. Maybe you should, dude, boy.
I'm doing this, we need comic relief. But Sherry Thomas also worked at Random House, which is now Bertelsmann. It's a great subject of part of our discussion here. In the One World.
Women's fiction and romance, and the One World, same with Alex.
Yes, okay. And she also worked for Black Enterprise also. To Sherry Thomas's left is Delano Greenwich, who is represented, who is a local publisher of Greenwich Editions. Published many art books, and most recently a very extensive and exclusive collection, complete Marcel Duchamp, which is a very rare and a very expensive book. I hope I'm not being incorrect here. And most recently has edited, has put together a book on Cuban art. And what's the title of that?
It's called Contemporary Art from Cuba. The texts are all, it's a bilingual book in Spanish and English.
Alex, how about sign levels here? Are we dealing with that from that angle? Okay, good. So I'm going to make a little introductory remarks, and then we'll kind of go to John A. Williams, because we like to get a little perspective on this whole history of publishing. My own particular remarks is just so basic that you might be shocked at the simplicity of it. But I've been noticing as a writer who has books in print publication from some of these publishers, that American publishing seems to me to have been taken over by a great deal of European interest. Bertelsmann owns Random House, they own Bantam, Doubleday, and Dell, and they own a huge swath of music publishers as well. And I felt a little alarmed by this, not particularly only because of Bertelsmann, but also because there are Dutch and English publishers that control, I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 75, maybe even a larger percentage of American book publishers. To me, this is a problem, not necessarily because of the business aspects of it, which we often don't have much to say about anyway, but because of the literary aspects of it. In other words, is the future of American literature going to be controlled by people who are not Americans, who have no investment in America? Why is that important? Well, because black artists, people of color, alternative types of people in American culture, I think, to my way of thinking, comprise the real spirit of America. And we are coming to a point now where, to me, that seems to be threatened. I could illustrate further the influence of Europeans in American literature, especially in New York, where the New Yorker was edited, the New Yorker magazine was edited for a long time by Tina Brown, who is an English woman, and her husband was a principal in Random House before it was sold to Bertelsmann. And I could go on and on about that, but those are just two little illustrations of how I feel that the problems with American literature are being perhaps compromised. Now, what I'd like to do at this point is to get from John A. Williams, whose novel, his novel Night Song was one of the first novels, if the first novel that I actually read that dealt with black people living downtown. And musicians at that point. And this is a world, as we know from literature, that very little has been written about. So I would like not only to get an idea of John A. Williams' perspective on American publishing, coming from that point in time, which I believe was the late 50s when he published that, or the very early 60s.
Early 60s. Yeah.
Well, actually, I've had so many publishers that started to look like the numbers in my own family. And that's really far too many, and I've never liked moving from publisher to publisher. But the nature of publishing is that it's a business, essentially a business. And it has been, I think, since the 30s, speeded up to the post-World War II period. Before that time, it was sort of like a venture that the gentlemen became involved in Europe and in America, because we like to think of New York City as the center of publishing. The publishing center actually began in Boston and had all the traces of the gentlemanly business dealings that you would find in London. Then it came down to New York. Now, I really do agree with Steve that it seems to me that what's happened with publishing now is the desertion of Americans looking at America and maybe making a little money on the side in addition. Now we've got a lot of Europeans who used to see particularly Americans of color as oddities that can be published occasionally. Oddities of interest to Europeans. Oh, look, here is a black man who's done this novel. Oh, look at this Chinese gal who's done this collection of poems. Here's a Miss Han. Aren't we great for letting them do this shit? Now what's happened now is that they come here and they said, okay, it's a business, and we don't need all these editors. We don't need editors who know what the hell they're talking about. And essentially, that's one of the major things that's happened. There was a time when you had an editor who perhaps was older than you and wiser than you, and he was wise or she was wise enough not to let it show, so that you weren't demeaned by it. You grew with your editor. You don't have those kinds of editors now. At least I don't, because everybody in the world is damn near younger than I am. I have to listen to some 20 or 30 years old tell me something about my work, and they don't know diddly, and I'm telling them, you don't know what the hell you're talking about? Yes, but I'm the marketing director. That's another direction that publishing has gone into. Marketing. Like you would market sneakers, or clock radios, or CDs. Nobody is interested in anything important that's being written today. I mean, there's a great pretense. We see the coverage in the Times and the other publications. But I mean, that's like doing a time step that you learned in your last life. You don't even have to think about it. 1, 2, boogity, 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 1, 2, boom, boom, and that's it. There's no heart in it. There's no interest in it. And who suffers the most? As Steve said, the people who have the most to lose. People who never had anything. We do. And that's going to get worse instead of better. Now, I don't mean to demean my colleague here who looks about the age of my granddaughter. You know. But I have a problem with that, you know. I would have a problem. Trying to tell you or my granddaughter how I perceive life, the universe. I think that's a basic difficulty, but if all we have are young editors, that's all they're going to throw at the writers. But let me pass this on, I'll come back.
Well, I just like to say, in addition to there being an issue of there being younger people being pulled into the publishing process and not necessarily having the background, they're either coming straight out of college and working their way up, or they're coming out of a whole other industry altogether. For example, they're coming out of Madison Avenue and being put into key executive positions and asked to do their thing without really having an idea of how the publishing industry works. That's true, that's an issue, and the people who work for them are the writers. The other issue is that the writers, the editors who are there, are having a lot that's asked of them. That takes away, there's a lot that's being asked of them. in addition to their usual editing responsibilities, that keeps them from focusing on their authors the way they would have when you began publishing and having that one-on-one relationship. They're being called out of the office where they're spending a lot of time in meetings, they're spending a lot of time talking to agents about film deals and that kind of thing. And so when I worked at Random House, I was fortunate to work with two editors who were from the old school, which meant they edited their own works. They didn't send the work on to copy editors or outside freelancers to do. They actually took the work home and worked on it and spent time with it and worked with the author and took some care with the letters that they sent out to the authors so that the authors felt like this was a part of their project. After all, it was their work. And that's how I was trained. I worked with Carolyn Nichols and Women's Fiction and Romance, and I worked with Cheryl Woodruff at One World. But the other thing is that as far as writers of color is concerned, the other challenge that we're facing is that there's so few people of color in publishing. And that has been an ongoing issue, I understand. You can probably count in two hands the number of Black editors who have positions in major publishing houses. And
that's like forever.
Forever. Yeah, and once they're there, they're there. I can remember going to meetings on Mondays when we had our editorial meetings and looking around and seeing another face. And if she wasn't there, I felt lost. Because, I mean, there's a lot of work that comes through the house. And it's not only about having a Black person or a Latino person or a gay or lesbian person there to shepherd your work through the publishing process, but it's how it's being marketed. It's what types of questions they ask of the author. I mean, if you don't understand the community where this author is coming from, it's going to be a challenge for you to understand the work that they're representing. You won't know what traditions they are honoring. You won't know where they're being innovative. And so there's a challenge there. So that's one real issue. We're really not in the publishing industry to make change and to really protect our authors.
Just to be showcased.
Yeah. And the ones who are there have a great deal of responsibility. Everyone wants them. And that extends to the agents as well. I mean, there are 4 or 5 Black agents who are working, and everyone sends their work to them. And it's very, very difficult for them to have that type of responsibility. And some wonderful projects get lost because there's only one person that's going to be able to handle it.
Delano Greenwich, maybe you'd like to give us a little perspective from the publisher's point of view. You go to a lot of international book fairs and so forth and so on, or whatever perspective you'd like to lend at this point.
Well, I want to go back to what you originally said. With sort of the incursion of European, primarily European publishing houses buying major American publishing houses. And I've never worked in mainstream publishing, so I don't know how things unfold at the various major houses in Europe. I know that Forrest Strauss and Giroux is now owned by Holzprint, which is a major German publisher. Random House is owned by Bertelsmann, et cetera, et cetera. But my feeling is that publishing is about money and about financing and investment. So my general reaction is it doesn't matter where the money comes from; it's your personnel.
May I say something?
I interrupted him. He's not finished his statement, John.
I think the personnel that's in place in the system, in the various houses that are really most important and not really the source of money. I mean, of course, the whole system's changed. I mean, the whole idea that you have one publisher who's who's responsible for the whole house. I mean, it's now simply a very corporate form, where it's a military form, where you have the president, and then you have the whole system that functions in a militaristic fashion. So, it's hard. I mean, if there were more, for example, if there were more Black editors, if there were more editors who had various sensibilities, I think it would be a much more interesting thing. But you're talking about one of the problems, the essential problems that you face in terms of that. I mean, there are very few people who have any sympathy with your work. So, I think it's the people in place that we can talk about, and who's there, and what they're doing. I mean, the whole process of publishing, of course, has changed over the last years. I mean, for example, when Mr. Williams first published his first books, it's really changed. I mean, the whole it's part of the evolution of how capitalism works, how it has worked. You know, we no longer have factories that need, 50,000 people to produce this truck, et cetera, et cetera. And the whole business of media, producing media product, is the equivalent of, Ford Motors or, GM, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same form, it's the same structure that produces, cars, which are basically, or refrigerators or televisions, which is actually just a production, mechanical production process, versus where you're involved in language, in ideas, in structure, in thoughts, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a big problem, but that's just part of the way the whole system's evolved.
So it doesn't matter then if they're Europeans controlling this military structure or Americans. It's going to be the same according to you?
Yeah, well, you want to use the word global, which I was trying to figure out the definition of that today. I think that it doesn't matter where the money comes from in the first place. Today, it doesn't matter if the money comes from Gütersloh in the case of Bertelsmann, or it comes from Hollywood. I mean, I think the approach. I mean, these guys work with systems. They don't work with the money comes from Bertelsmann and Gütersloh, so we're going to work this way, the German way. They just work in terms of the structure of corporate life.
Corporate life. Wait a minute. Now, we're not going to have any questions for the audience right now. But
Well, can I open my mouth now?
Steve, well, we still have Steve to respond, so let's hear it from the grassroots now.
Okay, number one, I'd like to say this, in terms of what you're saying there, in terms of this European invasion of publishing and corporate takeover. The New Yorker wrote a series of articles on this very phenomenon something like 15 years ago, if not longer, with Knopf and Bill and Cerf and those guys decided to bow out and let these corporations take over their turf and blah, blah, blah. They found that to be very alarming and disconcerting. The point that what John mentioned, and of course what the young lady also mentioned, the problem I see in the major publishing houses is probably across the board in the group of seven, not only in this country, Europe as well as major writers coming from these industrialized nations, is the editors are not editors anymore for the simple reason they got to be doing 500 million things, and they said they don't have time to do the one-on-one, as was mentioned at this table. However, in what John mentioned, if you go back and look at the tradition of publishing, be it in England or be it in the United States, coming from Boston, coming down here, is that in terms of poetry as an entity, meaning publishing of poetry, you go back to people like Walt Whitman, you go back to Batchelors, and you certainly go back to people like Paul Ernst Dunbar, and you come all the way to now. Who's always been around, of course, is small presses. And of course, what we had David in our time, when we were in our 20s back in the 60s, is that you had an explosion of small press publishing across this country. Ishmael and I certainly did come out of that tradition, and we certainly did maintain, of course, we're still publishing books. But what I've been doing here, of course, since I started at Gathering Times, is that we have something called a private night press. And of course, we've had bestsellers. We've got 2 bestsellers on our hand. Cheryl Boyce Taylor, book sold out in a matter of about 4 months, and Carl Hancock, God, that guy's book sold out in less than 3 months, and I'm still getting orders for it. I'm very cream that is that what has worked over the years in small press publishing in this country, God, it goes back years and years and years, is that it has fed your major publishing houses. For example, especially in poetry, generally speaking broad terms, many poets I've met through the years, I don't know how long I've been in New York, 35 years, is that, they've published their chapbooks, and then they've published a book of poetry, with a small press, and then all of a sudden someone pays attention to them, and they get a major house. A good example of it in our time, of course, is someone like Harold Surowitz, meaning that that first book of poetry of his, Mother Said, was nothing else but 5 chapbooks, which was turned into a book, and of course the editor, publisher had nothing to do with just imitate and do it that way.
And he sold a good number of copies.
He only sold out. It went to second, third printing and all that.
About about 20,000.
Yeah. and of course-
We can barely hear you back there.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I was talking for the television.
Well, no, there's some people sitting out there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. But anyway, so to reiterate, is in terms of, and I'll end it here, in terms of what you're saying, I do, contrary to what, you know, the gentleman on the far left is saying, I do see this European incursion into American publishing, but as to reinforce that this whole corporate takeover of publishing and the writer is, you know, blah, 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 treated like a piece of doo-doo, when they all make money off of the person, you know, who's creating content anyway, is I see that, you know, bordering on tragedy in the sense that it certainly doesn't help to maintain what do you call it, in the standards of literature. It certainly doesn't help in terms of nurturing writers. And I think one of the major aims of any given publishing house should be to nurture writers. You know, it's painful to write. It takes a lot of energy to write it. And it should be someone who knows to craft and knows the traditions and blah, 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 who's in the positions where they can, you know, make judgments in terms of take this word out and delete this paragraph and rewrite this chapter or whatever it is without making those, you know, comments arbitrarily without any grounds on which they're talking. However, at the same time, you know, I think that you do have, and I certainly could be wrong in this, I think that you still, contrary to what your fears are, is that you still have a strong tradition of small press publishing.
And that point is well made. Now, John Williams? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it costs more for a small publisher to work.
Exactly.
It costs more for paper, the promotion, the help, the whole business, because these guys in the big houses are up in the ante. I mean, they're selling 100-page books for $40 and stuff like this. It really doesn't make any sense. I mean, they're going to strip the tree all the way down to the ground. That's essentially what's happening. But we were talking earlier about the book Night Song, which was about Charlie Parker and Miles and that whole crew. Now that book was only published as a matter of luck. To give you an example of the old-time editors, my first novel was actually published by a paperback house, original paperback house, Ace Books. And I was still shopping around with Night Song, and it looked like Dell might take it as a paperback original. And I was working on Sissy, and I had submitted a story to a publication. What the hell was the name of it? Anyway, the editor was Cecil Hemley. And the magazine had been incorporated just then into Fairstrauss and Giroux. So Hemsley and his assistant went there. He said that they couldn't use the story, but now they were looking for novels. What did I have? And I said, what do I have? I'm going to threw Night Song over there, and they said, yes! And what else? I threw Sissy over there, and they said, yes, yes! And I said, yeah, okay, you know. And this guy who was a poet, Cecil Hemley, and he sat down and he talked to me. He said, well, I don't have to touch Night Song. Sissy, I think we have to do this, that, and the other. And we talked, and we bantered back and forth, and he made me see the point of it. You don't get editors who spend time like that, and I don't think I've had an editor like that since The Man Who Cried.
That's 100 years ago.
32 years ago.
God, that's back before we get into the Civil War.
But a book totally about the tradition, literary tradition. You had a big depiction of Richard Wright in there. And part of the novel was that he had written this novel about intelligence agency involvement in the black writers expatriate community in Europe, in Paris, that somehow was destroyed and never published, and there was a whole drama around that. So I see that as a novel, that a very important novel that a publisher might not look at nowadays and say, oh, it's going to make some money, but it's essential to our understanding of certain aspects of history, and very well done as well.
Change in editorial opinion.
Mm, So, you know, I always feel, you know, I say, well, it did seem at a point, now, and I'm going back, I don't know how far, but at a point it seemed from when Night Song was published, coming through the 60s, when there was a lot of interest in getting black literature out there, because it used to be that, you know, and Baldwin and Wright talked about this, there was really only one black author, really, at a time, and everybody kind of had to wait in line, and that's, of course, a large part of the problem that Baldwin had with Wright, was that Baldwin had to wait behind Wright, so to speak. But Arto Pupico Press in Houston, so it changed. And it seemed that through the 80s there was a large degree of those black literature that you could buy, go out and buy these books, which really wasn't the case in the early 60s and the late 50s. You could not walk out and just buy a bunch of black books because they weren't scarce.
No, but I mean, what you're leaving out, David, you're leaving out something very significant, making that statement.
That's my point, but go ahead.
Yeah, what you're leaving out, what you're leaving out is that you're leaving out, you know, you're dealing with the markets, sir. And what you're leaving out is, of course, when you had the explosion in the 60s, there was that demand for that stuff.
Okay, well taken. There was
So
a demand.
then, if you're gonna say now, is that demand here now? Is that demand not there now? Then you have to answer that question.
That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, however, is that since that time, up until a certain point in time, there was seemingly a very interesting development in American literature, especially fiction, nonfiction, where you had a huge spectrum of work to choose from. And it was small presses and large presses, and there was a nice selection. It seems at this point in time that this is threatened from my perspective. It seems that this is a coming problem, you know, and so that's kind of where I'm coming from, saying, gee, we were developing this multicultural American literature to a point, and now it seems to be threatened.
Well, let me say this.
Well, wait a minute, you said something, Delano wanted to say something.
And I want to hear John first talk.
Wait a minute.
One of the things that, as far as marketing is concerned, I mean, everything whether we produce, we sell, but we target it very carefully. I mean, we have no problem in terms of getting our material out across the world. I mean, for example, on some books we work with Thames and Hudson, or we work with people in Paris, et cetera, to get the books out in those specific markets which we don't have great distribution in. So there's a lot of, like, you know, there's a lot of collaboration between us and various points across the world to get to the reader, if you will.
Business to business,
Yeah.
B2B.
Yeah. So that's one aspect. The other issue is that, you know, you talk about the 60s, and I mean, all these small and medium-sized publishers have this problem. You know, there used to be the book, and there used to be records. Now today you've got electronic games, you've got CDs, you've got DVDs, you've got video, you've got et cetera, et cetera. That, you know, actually fights for basically, perhaps there's more money in the pool, but it, you know, it's still split basically. You know, this pooled money that went towards one or two directions now have to go to 10 or 15 different directions. So there's a split in terms of, like, not only the focus of people. You know, people will, you know, you don't go home. You know, you can't say, okay, I'm going home and read a book, because you got 10 new CDs that you just bought, 5 videos that you just rented, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice. Could I
Yeah.
I don't believe that people who are into video games are the same people who read books. I think there's different markets completely.
Yeah, but it's like you're competing against all these things. You know,
Well,
it's
you being the
I mean,
business.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, if I have two products, two different products in the
Hold
pool.
on one second. I think the onset of outfits like Borders and Barnes and Noble indicates just the opposite.
Then what will be right?
The people who are book readers are buying more books.
And to
Today,
reinforce what John is saying is that, you know, since we're gonna go in that direction, is that, you know, what I want to bring into discussion, exactly what John is talking about, is that, you know, Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, things like that, is that, you know, what has happened phenomenally, which I find very interesting, is that the reading public, in terms of reading, has increased as opposed to decreased.
Yes, but
Especially,
I'm gonna make a point here. I'm gonna
especially,
make a point.
ironically enough, especially for poetry.
Yes, for poetry, and poetry doing very well, and that's great that we have Steve to represent that aspect. There is one thing that we're not looking at
in
here.
the New York
that we need
Times
to
about
point
this
out.
the other day.
Yes,
about
yes, there
Poetry
is.
Slam.
There are now, at this time, whereas 10, 15 years ago, there was a multi-entities controlling these companies, there are only 8 entities who control 95%, 99% of all of this that you mentioned. Not only book publishing, video games, music publishing, et cetera, et cetera. There are now 8 entities. This is now a point where there are very few people controlling all of this. So yes, there is a problem because they are the ones, all the money is going to them.
But this is America, baby.
Why do you see
Yeah,
that
let's
as a
let
problem?
Sherry say something here.
Why
please.
do you see that as a problem, Mr. Henderson?
I'll
I'm
say
sorry.
that in a minute, but let's
You
let
better.
Sherry talk.
I just
We
like-
got a bunch of writers in this room.
I just like to say, I think you have a legitimate point. Not only are there fewer conglomerates now controlling publishing as far as what's going on this side of the border, but they're also trying to get involved in the distribution part of the game. And I think that's not only, as David's point, well taken, but there are a lot of other organizations of writers who are just equally concerned about it. I'm active with the National Writers Union here in New York, and they're very concerned when the new Beresman owned Random House, which includes Random House, the former Random House, and Benton Doubleday and Dell, their former competition, was trying to get into the game with Ingram.
Yeah, we just saw what the government did with that.
Yes, yes, but they.
Bring
but
that
they-
up now, don't
Yes,
bring it
yes,
up.
yes.
They lost.
They lost that, but there was a great deal of protest and some uniting that went along to help.
And
present
that's
that
why they
case.
lost.
Yes, but if that had not have happened, they might have been able to do that. And the point is, what I'm concerned about is that they tried. I mean, they knew that from the jump, that was not a legitimate step to make, and they tried it. And that, to me, that tells you a great deal about the type of market that we're involved in now. And it is very different from when Mr. Williams started off publishing. It's not a gentleman's profession anymore. And I think that's a very recent example of how things are changing. And I don't think you're wrong at all to be concerned. And we need to go beyond being concerned. I'm speaking now as a writer, and start really investigating some legitimate ways that we can address this. Because what's happening also is that the independent, we're talking about small presses, but also independent bookstores are being closed down every day across this country. And that's also another concern that writers.
Wait a minute, you're going too fast in the game because you keep leaving things out. In terms of your comment about the independent bookstores across the country, and of course, what happened at Ingram, hooray for love, I'm glad that happened at Ingram, that deal did not go through.
They got turned out by the courts,
Let me
right?
go further with this.
Yeah, they
This
lost
is
the
a
court
very,
decision.
very interesting, very interesting statement here. Is that what has happened is that since you do have things like Amazon.com, since you do have things like BarnesandNoble.com, is that what the independents have done, of course, the organization ironically did not start in New York, it started out in California, is that those bookstores themselves have gotten together to form their own electronic service to buy books.
So you
You know,
look
The
at
means
the
of distribution.
let me go even further.
change the
law. On that
So further,
scene-
let me go further.
Yeah,
I'm
time
gonna-
will tell to see how
I
that
just
pans
want to go
out.
further.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want to go further, meaning if you look at, of course, we come from tradition on the Lower East Side, is that if you look at the Lower East Side as an entity, St. Mark's is alive and well, in spite of the fact that Barnes & Noble is right across the street.
Okay, well,
No,
that's the point.
just because Ingram lost this round,
Here
doesn't
goes
mean,
Mr. Pessimist.
doesn't mean
Here
they're
goes
not
Mr.
gonna
Pessimist.
come back.
Here goes
Yeah.
Mr.
Okay.
Pessimist.
It's sort of like a guy who says, well, this left hook ain't working tonight. I'm gonna do this right cross tomorrow. So you can't count them out of the game.
Yeah.
Now, it's, all of this is really even more dangerous than anything else we discussed. I'm talking about who controls intellectual property. And if you've got these 8 entities tied up, all of these ideas, and every week they're saying, well, we want this, we want all the electronic rights. We want all the rights for anything you produce on NEC, an NEC computer, a gateway computer, a Microsoft. And
Whatever.
what the hell are we gonna do?
You know what I think, I think that, I mean, you make an interesting point about Ingram. I mean, it's really funny because all these people are running around trying to, even small presses and any organization that produces product.
And Ingram is one of the biggest book distributors.
They are the biggest.
The biggest, okay.
Yeah. That they are, I mean, I'll tell you a funny story. I was at the book fair in LA, and they have this just-in-time production. They have a big computer that's a printing press that actually you can produce 6 copies or something at a reasonable price. But the thing is that Ingram allied themselves with IBM. So what Ingram wants is basically, they want to produce, IBM Ingram wants to produce your 6 copies or 10 copies or 20 copies, but they also want to sell it. They want to distribute it. They want you to give them their list, your list, to them. So they, all of a sudden, what the major push, it seems, at the moment, is to kind of like corral all the possibilities of distribution. Basically, if you have money, anybody can produce a book of varying quality. The real issue has always been to get the book to the person who wants to read the book. And it's not the fact that they're all lined up as conglomerates just to produce the material. I don't think that's their focus. I think their real focus is to control the whole distribution system, the whole network across the world.
Well, focus as control, complete control. That's the focus, right?
Well, I think if they control the means of distribution, they control the whole thing.
Well, point.
Which is why they want to get Ingram.
Well, let me tell you what my agent told me the other day. Let me say
leaping
something.
and jumping and jumping and leaping.
Of course
I'm
you are.
getting depressed.
Steve, I'm going to tell you something. These are depressing times for writers.
No, because I'm going to certainly throw some other stuff into the mix.
Well,
But
but
I'm
let
going
me
to
make
be
a point.
cool.
Can I make a point?
I want to hear from John Burns.
Wait a minute now. Let me make this point.
My
Because
hand up there.
I want to talk to the text, and of course, we have a lot of people who we want to hear from. But I want to make this point. You talk about that machine that can publish 6 books. Okay, my agent told me, he said, this is about a month ago, he said, he says, this whole clause in your contract about when your book is out of print, after a certain amount of time, you get the rights back, right? With this technology, your book will never be out of print, and you'll never get your right back because they can always fill an order for a book, through this particular thing. Well, it won't be in the bookstores, but they can still fulfill orders, so your book is technically still in print.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Well, okay,
That's not true. According to legalities,
excuse me,
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It might
because
not be true, but we're
no,
gonna take this and you're gonna
it's
be
actually not true, you're
after
right.
time.
You guys-
Because
you guys-
usually there's a
you
clause in
guys-
the contract
you
that says
guys-
a minimum, usually when the publisher has less than 200 or 300 or 500 books usually, it states that the book is essentially out of
You gotta
print.
make sure in the contract that
Right.
there's a statement
Yeah.
that you have 500, the publisher has 500, 1,500 copies or something.
Some contracts don't have numbers.
No, it's up to you, you gotta
Right.
show that.
So you gotta be sure.
Oh,
sure.
Let me bring up,
Okay. So it's not technical.
I just want to expand and differ with Delano on that point about the instant book thing, the six copy the other day. I had a book party for one of Ron Secondix writers, and of course, Ron Secondix, those guys, those guys. That's something collaborative back in the 60s or something like that. He published a young writer who judged that writer and got some prize for some Chicano writer from down in Houston, Texas. I had a book party for him here. And Ron and I got to talking, blah, 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 and Ron was talking. He said, hey man, he said, you heard about the latest thing? I said, what? He said, man, you can, we're going to get an instant book and turn it around in about 20 minutes, and sell them everything. And what he's doing with his own personal novels is that he's reprinting one at a time and selling it on demand.
Okay.
Follow.
Yeah.
So
Meaning
that's-
you and I and someone else can do that. I'll give you an example. I just republished Screw Bang and Gyro, which died 100,000 deaths so many years ago. Thank God, similar to what John is talking about, the editor, I edited both of my club. She and I work hand in hand because she knows all the time people let me change whatever had to be changed, blah, blah, blah. In terms of what was agreeable to us and blah, blah, blah. And right now, I got that darn thing on the website. It's called stevecadden.org, and that's how that book is.
How many copies sold so far?
So far, lots.
Okay, good, great.
I just went up a
I just wanna say one thing, maybe it'll be the last thing I'll say today.
No, you got a lot to say.
I
You
think-
gotta get for the
I
audience.
think it's important. One of the stoppers for all of this messing around is to make sure you've got your work copyrighted.
That's right.
Even if you may not place the work, copyright it. And I think it costs $20. But you copyright it, you own it. And that doesn't mean people aren't gonna try to steal it from you. But when it gets to nitty gritty, you are the owner. And if you have to go to court, you can prove it if you got the copyright. It's very important. And people just tend to overlook that. And you have to watch the changes that they keep making occasionally with the copyrights as well.
Laws, exactly.
And
Especially in
I
this
think
electronic age.
I think that's about the only guard we have these days. Because there's no telling what your agent is going. Your agent will sell your mama.
I know, they might be in on it. They probably in on it. They work with the opposition.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really interesting though, that, we could possibly consider is that we all could be producers of books. All of us can be producers of books. We have the whole thing about the technology and the change of technology allows individuals, if they could, in some group or one of the systems, actually produce a finished product of a book that doesn't look very much different from what Random House can produce or anybody else can produce. So I think that's an interesting aspect of the future. I think the other thing is that in reality, it may seem that we have less and less means of distribution, but in actuality, there are more and more points of distribution that are more directed towards the various markets. More directed. It's more channeled towards the various possible markets you could consider. This is really very interesting.
That overcomes what Ingram might have in mind. That can go beyond Ingram's scope, so to speak.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, in terms of distributorship, they have wide distributorship, but you say these niche distributions
Yeah, there are all kinds
can
of.
overcome Ingram's.
Right. I mean, like when we produce a book in 5,000, okay. I mean, there are about 100 different major sources. I'm not talking about people sell 5 copies, but major sources that actually buy our book and sell it to their customers, all directed towards various niches. There's some people focus on libraries, there's some people focus on, chain stores, there's some people focus on independent shops, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, and also in the change with the possibilities of electronic getting, if I have a poetry network or some kind of electronic poetry network, that you can actually direct my titles to the people who use your system. So I mean, things may have changed a lot, but it's not necessarily pessimistic if you can adapt to the changes.
So all is not lost.
No, I think that you only become extinct when you become extinct when you don't adapt anymore.
We can roll over and play dead. I want to hear from the audience.
Okay, we are going to open it up.
I'm bored.
We're going to open it up. Sherry, do you want to make any?
No.
Okay. Can we take a break?
No, I want to hear from Ryder.
I want to know.
Okay.
I want to hear from Ryder.
Okay, now
We got writers in the room.
Well, let me check on something. Alex, how are we doing? Okay. Do you have to turn the tape? How's the tape going?
Turn it on.
Well, just take it and turn it now. And run it back. Okay, so let's see. I think that the first person to want to say something, and I hope it's still relevant, is John Farris.
Yes, it's quite relevant.
Let's hear from Mr. Wondler. Try his point of rest.
What I want to say is that from my limited experience, I found that what Mr. Williams is saying to be chillingly true. And what the young lady is saying is chillingly true. And I thought that what Delano said illustrated that quite clearly. And I can point out an example of how it happens, how what Steve said happens, how there just becomes a flattening out of cultural concerns, a lack of regionalism, exactly as a fast food restaurant or something like that. I was being published by this French guy, and Darius James was being published by the same guy. He was having parts of Negrophobia published. So it's scatological. I think it's possible, even more than Steve Cannon's book. So I said to him, I said, wow. I said, how are you gonna translate that over there? And the difference between Steve's book and that book is that it has a lot of, the title is very referential. It is Negrophobic. And so I said, man, how are you going to publish that book? You know, because it had all this slang and all this stuff. I said, how are you going to translate that? So he said, oh, we have a lot of words for that stuff. He said, it's going to be harder to translate you. So another time with the same publisher, I made a mistake. I meant to put a time that came. I meant to say I was too early, that my character was too early in a situation, and I had inadvertently put too late, and I didn't pay it any, I put late, and I wasn't paying any attention. I gave him the manuscript, and to tell the truth, it wasn't this French guy, a French, whatever they are, Gallic guy, published it, he gave it to Cameroonian. But what happened was they never consulted me. You know, even though there was an apparent inconsistency in that, they just went ahead and put it out there, just translated it right into English, just like it was.
That proves it then. The Europeans are just as insensitive as American editors are, right?
And when you talk about self-publication, I mean, self-publication went on from the time that the first person could scratch on the sand. You know what I mean? That's self-publication. Okay, how is that distributed? Who is interested in it? What is the market for that? I don't care how much you self-publish, if you don't have a market for it, then go on.
Well,
You
if
sell
I
it
may,
over the internet, like
Yeah, one, you can sell what?
if
You still have to create a
I
market.
try to answer your question. Can I try to
I
answer
don't
your
think
question?
he was bringing up questions, I think he was making statements.
Okay, so then, so you want to respond to
No,
this
I want
statement?
to, yeah, I sort of like, well, there are two levels of things. There's more than about 500 million people who are literate in the English language across the world. There's more than half a billion people who are considered literate. So, an English language book can be distributed globally, and you can reach an audience. The question is, how do you get that audience's attention?
Right.
Okay. I found that there are two things that are true. The first thing is that, okay, you can put something on an electronic network and hope somebody comes across it or interacts with it.
Right.
But the only way that electronic, this marketing really works electronically is if you have ancillary advertising or marketing.
Right.
I mean, that's why Amazon.com, all their electronic, you see them in New York Times full page every Sunday.
Right.
You know, promoting whatever they're promoting, New York Times bestsellers list, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, you have to go about getting people's attention in a variety of ways, not saying, okay, I'm gonna put it on this website, et cetera, and maybe somebody will come across it when they're surfing. But the fact is that, you know, if you targeted your audience in different ways, like got their attention, then they can know that, okay, I can buy it in the bookstore, I can buy it off the web, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Let me, just one more thing. The whole question of translation, okay, you're taking a book in English, and you're trying to put it in the French market, or the German market.
I'm not talking simply about
No,
translation.
but he
I
is
wanna
not
make
this
that
one, but he is not.
Okay. I mean, you have to find the publishers, and there are publishers, I mean, who would either distribute your book in English because they can distribute 300 to 500 copies, or there are people who think they can sell 3,000 to 5,000 copies translated. The whole issue of translation, right, is that if you have great translators, you know, your book is going to work in their own language. If you don't, it's going to be a failure. And there's no way of doing that.
That's why I said I didn't
no way of
want
knowing.
to. Wait a minute.
Unless the
No,
house is
I'm
not
not
I'm sorry, we have to go on to somebody else asking a question now, but
Yeah, you guys
those
can
points
go.
are well made.
Hey, John,
Are you satisfied with the answer to your thing, or that you corrected me on that?
Well, no, I was saying that when dealing with, I deal with the contract side of publishing.
Now, say your name, by the
And it
way.
was Tyron.
Tyron?
Yeah.
Or Steve will call me graphics. But,
Right.
I'm also a writer.
It's also his birthday.
But I deal with both sides, the business side and the artist side. And I'm one of those people who believe that you can make money doing the art form, be it poetry, be it novel, be it short stories. And the first thing he said is very important, to have a niche or a market. Without a niche or a market, you're just wasting your time. You can say, you can do the Roman way, build it and hope someone comes and see it, but you'll be sitting like a Roman waiting for it. Or you can do it the American way, build it, lie about it, promote it, and people come and buy it.
Convince everybody they need it.
Right, and then people come and buy it.
Okay,
But
Chris,
You know, I want to reinforce what Greg is saying.
And the second part of that, I was saying also that we have to be very wary of everyone as an artist. You have to really take it just as a business, contracts, everything to be paid for, copyrights, publishing, because after you get your copyrights, the publishing where the money comes in, publishing rights, mechanical rights, performance rights.
electronic rights.
Electronic rights now. I deal with that side
Could I,
heavily.
could I please,
easily-
forgive an old man, I just brought some,
Here comes old folks.
I brought some notes
Listen to old folks.
that I collected out of the Authors Guild. This is about market and trusting people. The headline is Global Piracy of Books, up 3%. In China, they pirate $125 million a year in books, maybe some of your books. Russia, 45 million. Down to Malaysia, 8 million. But there are about 20 countries listed here. And
Not much party in America, right?
they don't have the French here. I mean, the French are good screwers. They don't have the Germans here. They ain't bad either. The Dutch, superb. You know, on and on and on. So we're talking about doing all of these legal things in an atmosphere that is 50% illegal.
Ah, point well made. Point well made. We're all trying to be good citizens, right?
That's the only way to make money though. I mean,
Is to be a good citizen or
no, the illegal way,
pirate?
the legal way makes you money for a short period of time, but the legal way will make you money. When I'm your age, John's age, John's age, I'm able to go back and give my kids a legacy. If I don't have the copyright for the publishing, I can't give them a legacy.
The copyright and publishing has very little to do with the pirates, as he is saying. But let's go to Christopher Stackhouse here. Yes?
I had just a few points.
And be clear.
Okay, and being clear, straightforward. First of all, I think we forget that literature is a form of entertainment. So it does need to align itself with film and with movies, whatever forms of entertainment. When he mentioned the competition of a CD versus a film versus a video, DVD, that's a very legitimate concern, because I might want to go home and listen to something that tells the same kind of story in a different way. I mean, at one time, yeah, the only media was books. For a long time, it was just books. Now it is something else. You can tell a story in a multitude of ways. So I think that's something to be concerned with, and I think writers...
Wait a minute, I think John Williams and I are gonna disagree with you.
Hold on. The reason why I say that is the main concern I hear here is like, well, as a writer, how do you make money?
What kind of writer are you?
Right, exactly. Well, what kind
I
of,
don't think anybody up here said one thing about making money. I mean,
Well, what is
not
it?
that it
It's-
isn't on our mind.
okay, but let me finish what I'm saying. I've yet to hear anyone say, I want to share an idea with a particular community. Your story is not really so relevant to everybody
Hold it,
all
hold
the
it.
time.
1 second ago, you said literature was entertainment.
It is.
Now you're saying it is an educational and spiritual tool.
Now you
Exactly.
Now, what is it?
It's both of those
Both.
things. If it's good art, it's both of
Okay,
those things.
if it is, then you have to make that point clear. If you're talking about literature as entertainment, and my understanding of the term literature means truth through the writing.
Right. But if it's good art, it does tell the truth. And art is for entertainment's sake. It's I mean,
Not necessarily.
not necessarily across the board, but in the terms that I hear you guys talking in.
No, the only person who's talking like that is Delano. You better talk to Delano.
And I disagreed with the
Right, but what I'm saying,
John disagreed with that.
what I'm getting at is I'm hearing owning copyright. I'm hearing owning
You
copyright.
listen? Not on that shade, but this guy produces art books and they all sell out.
That's cool. I mean, I'm just saying that, you know, if it's just about getting an idea out as a writer, writing your idea down, writing your story,
Well, you
sharing
want
the
more
truth.
than an idea.
Make the point.
If
Well, hurry up, you're running out of time. You got 3 seconds.
If that's the point, then why is there such a concern with copyright and owning? Publish your book and give it to your neighbor.
Why would
You know what I'm saying? If you're not trying to make money at it, or you're not trying to become a intellectual icon of some sort, then this is not a big conversation here.
Well, I have a problem with that because, I mean, it's work. I mean, it's work to produce things.
It's a
And,
business.
if I do work, I wanna get paid. So, I mean,
Get a job.
Yeah.
That's the job.
Right, and if that's your job, then don't complain about it.
Thank you very much for your perspective, Christopher Stackhouse.
Where do you get this
You know what?
Wait, hold on a minute.
No,
I mean, for the chair.
I'm confused, because I'm not sure how we got on that.
I was thinking, honestly, I'm with Chris. I was thinking too that.
That's because you're young.
Like, maybe so, but.
Wait a minute, I'm young too. And
I
I
mean,
still don't know what you're
You're
talking
not as
about.
young as he is.
I guess my background was this, but I think that I do this. I love what I do. My grandmother was a poet and a writer. My father was a playwright and a poet.
Make
So,
your point.
I write because I love it, and I write because it supports my living, pays
Make
my
your
rent.
point.
So if I'm not being careful, I can't pay my rent. Why just do it for the art form and not to pay your rent?
That's what he said.
Right. That's what we thought you guys. That's what I thought they were talking about as well.
Okay, wait a minute.
Well, sometimes
Okay,
it's
we'll have a little misunderstanding, I'm sure it'll be cleared up, but you know what? I want Maria Van Dalen to come up here, from Holland. She's our representative European, who's a poet from.
I'm out of the for a Dutch with this story.
Now, I want you to come up, now, I want you to hear.
You are.
Now, I want you to, now, would you come up and keep it down, please? Hello.
You'd have to eat.
Hey, John and Tyron, let's keep it down, or you can take the discussion of them. Come, hurry up, Maria. You can leave that stuff there.
Hurry up, man. We gotta get to closure, you guys.
Sit down.
To the buffet. We have to get to the buffet.
Anything you'd like to say
Yeah,
about all that you've been saying?
Yeah,
Please
sure.
address this now.
As to living on the poetry, I think I'm spoiled.
Okay.
That's something I have to say. First of all, there's about 3 main publishers in the Netherlands who own everything, but all the literary publishers who own this, more or less divided the country among themselves. So it's 8 for America, 3 for the Netherlands. And Netherlands is a country more, well, a little bit less than the state of Iowa in growth, so it's really not big. We have 50 million people living out there, and a lot of them are reading books, but not so much reading poetry, and I'm a poet. But as to say I'm spoiled, my publisher really reads everything that he does publish, everything. And every next literary publisher does not so much publish for the market, but they publish what they want to publish, really what they like, is what they think is good literature.
That's not Bertolucci, right?
That's a little bit different, pardon?
That's not Bertolucci, is it?
It's no, no, it's not. So they read what they publish, they talk it over with you. They do not change very much actually. But when you're a poet, you don't make much money by the selling of the poetry at all. And I must disagree about poetry being entertainment in this way. I think it's more, my lecture is more about moral obligations, I think, and about a way of making choices, which is different. And of course, I love literature, and of course, it's the joy of literature also. It's the joy of language. In that way, it might be a form of entertainment, certainly. But so you don't. If you are a novelist, you sell a lot of money. You might even be able to live from it. But to come back to my first point, is to being spoiled. The government has got a lot of grants for writers and artists in general. And if you're lucky, you can have one. I'm one of the lucky ones, right? So I'm going to publish my fifth book of poetry next year, and I have had a grant ever since '93. That is not only enough to live off, but if you're not, not too much outgoing, it will still be okay. And there's about 200 writers, most of them poets, because they do not earn much by selling a book, but they earn by performance, like musicians and like performance artists. About 200, actually 183 writers who have a grant, a big grant or a small grant. And that's something that's not quite the case in most other European countries. And I'm asked to speak for Europe in general. Europe is not conceived of as a country, any European country. It's still the French against the Germans, the English against everybody on the continent in general. In any one way of thinking all the time, also culturally. It is very strange, I think, out here. Because Europe is even smaller than America, so we're still very much divided amongst each other in all different ways, cultural ways, of course, political ways, financial ways also. So there's a lot of differences out there. Now, as to the possibility for other people than whites to publish, I must say that it's like everybody's hoping to find this writer of color that might really, because it's kind of like a fashion or a hype, but I think it's totally wrong. It's totally wrong. So it's not looking at the literature, because at some point anybody who is of color should publish a book. Oh, this is nice. So we're going to hire this. I hate that kind of stuff. So just good literature, and a lot of writers are second or third generation from coming in from Africa, coming in from Morocco, coming in from Turkey, coming in from Yugoslavia, former Yugoslavia, who are very good writers in my language, and even adds to the way my language should be used. That even if you're born Dutch, you learn from the beautiful way they use the language, which is different because they have a different cultural background, and that is what I like very much, and that is when I think you're going to start some literature coming out of it. But still, we do not have any great publishers of color that I know. There are a few writers out there, mostly writers, as I say, from the Middle East region or the African region or the southern of Europe region. And it's in general African American literature, as it says in Station, we don't have very much. We have a few books of Israel translated, but that's about it. And I myself am a teacher of creative writing at the University of the city where I live. And I have used up till now African American literature for students, and a lot of them do not even know what I'm talking about. If I say Sonny Sanchez, Luther Clifford, or even Ismail Reed, they don't know. So that's really strange.
First of all, this is not a PA system, it's only a tape recorder, so you should speak to the audience.
Yeah, okay, I did.
Okay, so what about, you say Europe is all divided and everything and so forth and so on? Now, what about the euro? What about the economic community of Europe? I mean, there is a big move for them, and I think they have the central bank in Germany. So while there may be...
It's not perceived by the public as being an important thing. People get quite irritated by the idea of the euro in general. It's not, we do not feel Europe as being one country at all, in no one way. We just have a war at our back door because a lot of different groups think they need their own very little countries, like Serbia, Croatia.
We're always causing trouble over there, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Would you say that there was a certain uniformity in European attitude towards people of color historically? I mean, no matter what their differences were,
I think we're still acting like colonialists
Yes.
very
So there was an agreement there.
I think so.
Okay,
I think so, yeah.
I was just curious because, I mean,
What do you think? Because you're publishing now, you're publishing Duchamp, right?
amongst other things.
Yeah.
I think that, well, what little I know, let me put this, what little I know about your market is that, you know, your country probably has the highest literacy of English speakers, level of literacy in terms of
That's
people who are literate in the English language. So, I mean, Amsterdam is a great place to go to buy English language books on the continent of Europe because there are stores that are just simply full of them. I think the reason why you're, you know, there are a lot of subsidies, and I want to sort of clarify this, is because the Dutch language group is very small, about 18 million people speak Dutch, if that many. And the Dutch government is very vigilant about supporting the Dutch language, no? Would you say that? That's the reason why
I could add something to do.
yeah.
There's 50 million in the country and another 50 million outside the country. If you count South African and partly Dutch language.
50 million?
There's 50 million inside the country.
And 15 million outside the country?
About 50 million outside.
1.5 or 5.0?
1.5.
Including South Africa.
1.5. Pardon?
Including South Africa.
I think if you count South African a language, it's partly Dutch, but it is related to Dutch, and there's nothing to understand.
Okay,
Okay. We're going to take a break here. John Williams has to leave, is that so?
Yeah.
We want to thank you for coming and
Well, I'm really disappointed in the level of discussion that you guys had.
I'm sorry, these people get right in the.
I'm sorry,
John,
I made a big attempt.
I'm gonna speak for Chase. That means that.
I always
Well, I didn't get a decision anyway. Between being a writer, being a teacher at school, being a writer, working at a computer company, being a writer, and I had to make a decision. Is being a writer something else, but it's being a writer. And to just be a writer, I had to make it entertaining.
I'm sorry, I was
You know what I mean now? I gotta make a decision between just being a, that's me and you, sir. All right. We'll see you again, sure. I make a decision between being a writer and making a profession.
Take care of yourself.
Being a writer and doing something else. And I want to be a writer. Just a writer, that's it. A writer. And so I try to make it where I want to be, I always do what I feel. I have to make it palatable for people to understand. And have to be entertained by it sometimes too. I like to entertain people also. Also want to enjoy it.
Well, I do too, but the kind of writing that I'm concerned with is the kind that has something to reveal to people that they might not have seen before. And every bit of work that I do is for that purpose, to add a perspective to an existing sector, more than it is to entertain. Of course, to do that, I have to entertain people so that their disbelief is suspended.
That's what we're saying. We want to, I mean, say, I don't know if I agree with this. That's what we're saying, that we want to bring the point across. Like, Ayuba dancing, for example, right? But dancing is not enjoyable to listen to.
Hit on Thursday, brother. That's what the bird.
No one would have followed it.
we're going to have
His theory was beautiful, but I'm okay with both dancing. Lots of things about revolution.
Yes, but you see, a lot of a fair amount of the great writers in the world were never really distributed in their time, not to any satisfaction. I mean, their market was much more limited than it is now. And they certainly didn't entertain people that
I didn't understand how he got it.
and whether they made a living or not,
Don't you
still produced the work.
that what I'm doing And what this young lady
I'm
is
saying-
doing, those are acts of love.
Labor of love.
John.
Nah, Steve,
Labor of
Steve,
love.
I really enjoy you guys hit him.
What I'm saying is, being in your lane, you just do your job.
That's what you're doing.
That's what I'm saying.
Who's complaining is David. You didn't jump on David's case, don't jump on our case.
I mean, we're saying, I'm
You
just saying.
misdirect your goddamn question. Lana was over there talking shit and David was talking shit. You didn't hit them.
Yeah, that's right.
You hit the panel.
That's my role there. Thank you.
You should have supposed to say this was for Delano or this was for David.
But no, at some point, because John Winter also said about how he was shafted one time. First, also he was shafted. And I'm thinking, you can't feel shafted before you just make it for labor of love. You just make. I mean, sometimes I write. When I was in high school, college, I would write poems on a table, and I leave them there. Because I wanted to write it. I just did it for the love of that day.
Let me tell you about John Williams, the way John Williams earned his money for $100,000 a year. That guy's a returned college professor. And he made enough money to make sure that his kids got to college. Now they're writers and they're making money.
That's what I'm saying.
That's him.
You have a choice
He certainly
between
didn't rely on sales.
Then you have no argument. I'm just trying to be a writer. I'm not trying to be a professor, a garbage man, a doctor. I want to be a writer. Writer. So my argument is that I have to keep, after making.
Now, what do you think about Carl? You like what Carl's doing?
Hancock Rock?
Yeah.
Yes, he's being an artist.
Yeah.
He's not trying to be an artist,
That's what you do.
that professor.
That's what you do.
Yes, I love it.
Now you know
Look
who
at
got,
Jessica.
you know who got into the habit, don't you? Me and Carl. I'm the one who published the goddamn book.
I know how to.
You know, and the way he's getting rid of that damn thing. And Carl goes all over the planet and blah 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 blah, and then he come up and he's upset.
He's performing.
He's performing, but you can't give it aside. He's saying the same time. It's funny. He goes at the same time. But you have to decide if you want to be an artist / something else profession, or artist. That's it. Whether be a painter or an actor or whatever. So people want to be double. They want to be, see the guy be professor.
No, I'm not saying all
I
that.
just want to be.
You go your way. I'm telling you what Carl said.
Right. See, Carl
I'm
is an
telling you what
artist.
Carl said.
That's why me and Carl, I agree with Carl.
I'm telling you what Carl said.
He's just being an artist.
I'm telling you what Carl said.
And he's doing it.
I'm certainly not going to tell you what Derek Walcott does it. You know, because he teaches.
Walcott teaches. Like Dwight Phillips. Dwight Phillips is the editor of the Daily Challenge. He makes what, $100,000 doing that? Well,
You know.
See, he can go around
But
and not complain.
but you become the next Carl. So we can talk shit about you as our mom.
Talking about me anyway. What are we talking about?
It's not quite whatever you do, whether you're an artist or you do another thing, these are issues that you need to be aware of. Regardless of what you do. Because this affects all of the teachers and the Carl Hancock Ruxes and the Jessica Paramore and the Ishmael Reeds. These are issues that are not going to change, so that's why you need to be
But
aware
they're
of
coping
whatever
with
you
it. But they're coping with it in a way that's anti everything they were talking.
No, it's not. No, it's
They're
not.
entertaining.
The commercial.
Nobody said nothing about entertainment. We never even got into
No,
the
Johnny
point.
Williams said that he wasn't, how the films and CDs and videos,
So the first.
et cetera,
So the first.
work symbiotic to publishing.
He didn't understand that. See, I didn't even catch on
And
that. I thought he was saying that
He was also criticizing
The audience
you,
is the-
which is like the stupidest thing because we're selling books off the web. I mean, people are making.
No, you have to understand where Brother Williams is coming from. He's not criticizing you as in the writers who are out there writing. He's criticizing the publishing industry, which if you're going out the artist route, you're not necessarily going to be aware of. He's speaking of, you can try, there are many routes to go. You can self-publish,
No, you will
can do
see-
your
no,
own thing, or
actually,
you
you
can go
will.
through the, or
You
you
will
can
see
do
that.
both. He was speaking of his experience. He didn't go through the self-publishing route. He went through small press and then major press. So he was speaking of what's happening now in the major presses, where there is the level of professionalism is changing a great deal, and the type of publication that an author experiences is very different, and it's not better than what he got. It's deteriorating, and that's a legitimate point. That's what he was speaking
I agree with you. I agree with
the
you.
youthfulness. It's not just their youth; it's just their inexperience,
And
and they don't know that
And
they're
they're untrained also.
because they're being put in there as young Turks, and they don't know
They're
that
inexperienced
there are
about
other areas.
literature, but they know how to sell books. If you get a little 20 or 30-something-year-old woman who reads Johnny Williams' book
But check it
because
out.
it's a
But
great
see, you're
book,
looking
she'll
at the
know how
other,
to sell it.
see, this is what John A. is criticizing. You're looking at the tail end of the thing. You gotta look at the product. You can sell a book, but once the word of mouth comes out that the book is full of errors and the book doesn't make any damn sense, that the book ain't about shit, that John A. Williams done went down, he's not gonna sell anything. I don't care how much money, how much MTV bravado you put on it, how much, hip hop you know how to sell it. But that's what he's saying. It goes hand in hand. And a a lot of people who are coming into publishing now don't realize it. They know how to do the marketing thing, but they don't know how to do the old school, how to make that book worth something to sell in the first place.
I agree with that.
That's what he was speaking from. I mean, that's I don't know about anything else. I think that's why he's still hurt, because he has been hurt. Because the work, I mean, when you sit down, you're a writer, you sit down, that's your work, I mean, that's your heart. And then you have to give it over to someone. You trust that editor is going to take care of it. And when they're not trying to take care of your art that you put out of your soul, they're trying to just sell it. And you know that it's not that simple. That once it gets out there and people know it's whack, that's it. I mean, that's the whole
That's
issue.
why I said,
So
too, like writer, get a job. Take your time and edit your own book. Go over your material. You know what I'm saying? If it takes you 5, 7, 10 years to put a book out.
But you know what? You can do that. Look, I work in there, and people can still screw it up because it doesn't just go one hand.
I'm working
That's
at
why I'm
it, too. I have to tell you the
saying
same.
that's how it changed. That's how it's changed from what he knows. He was speaking of the 30s. It was literally one person who dealt with your work. Now it's so, there's so many people. I mean, I have a book on my shelf now from this author who messed around. I mean, the book was great. I mean, she spent a lot of time on it. The book was fine. Everything was fine. They added, the marketing wizards added a reader's guide in the end, which is a great idea because a lot of book clubs are doing that thing. They're selling books. But someone along the way messed up and put bad reviews in there. Instead of pulling out the good reviews, they printed bad reviews, not on the gallery, not on the advanced arts and going out to the good reviewers, but on the last printed of, 100,000 copies of the book, that's all that's on there. You go to the bookstore, I can go there now, pull open the book, and there's going to be bad reviews in there. I can't tell you who. But, I mean, that was a big mistake, and that's because publishing has changed. It's not just one person. When you introduce more people in the kitchen, I mean, it's a lot of seasoning going on. So that's a trade-off.
You know what I'm saying? And that was the whole thing. It's like,
Yeah.
are you,
So that's why more people are doing stuff.
Are you writing for yourself as an artist and trying to do something artistic?
Why are you always engaged in talking to the topic? I told you. Listen, as attractive as you are, I keep telling you,
You tell me don't talk about other people.
don't talk about other people. I told her, Shade, there's one rule at tribes: handsome men and attractive women, and ignore everybody else. That's serious.
But I'm saying, you keep saying go get a job, but it's not that simple. You can self-publish, but you don't have access to the distribution.
Right.
You don't.
But why do you want access to
Elin
it?
Harris self-published, sold his book out of his car, computer shops,
Right.
sold a lot, but he wasn't selling for that because you know what? He wants all the money.
Right.
Distribution, mainstream, more people.
If you want mainstream distribution, you want distribution bigger than yourself or your means. What are you trying to
Have to
get?
be available to that market.
What are you trying to get? You're trying to get some dough.
No, not necessarily, because when I write, I don't want to just write to my mother, my auntie, my grandmother. Because I'm not doing it for entertainment. You know, I'm doing it to change minds. So I want to get it out to the largest audience.
That's entertainment.
I'm doing it to the largest,
When you're
no,
writing
it's
for,
not.
It's not entertainment.
to me, if you're writing something for some
I don't
people
believe
that
in
are
art
in a
for art's
whole other
sake.
country.
You do?
No, I don't.
But that's what he's saying though. If you're trying to change someone's mind, to change someone's mind, you have to be able to grab their mind. To grab their mind must be quote unquote entertaining or like for example, I always say about these like prophets or revolutionaries who just speak like doctors. They were entertaining enough to grab. They were so remarkable in the way they approached me. They were able to grab them and then present them with some more than kind of products. And you have to be able to do that. Like, sometimes you can come out of it. You have to be able to grab it. I mean, that makes it more curious.
But if they're going to put it to that,
You better be right. Why would you go that way? When I read, I would never read this. It's boring. I read Uptown Sinclair. That's fantastic.
We're not necessarily saying when it's all said and done, and your part of the job as far as
The editing part comes into
you got,
play.
your part of the work, you have to realize, that there's a whole nother angle. It's just you be aware and you make your choices. You're right, I'm saying, you still have to be aware of how you position yourself more.
But
It's
see,
just about
everything
getting
comes
a
back
job.
to the market. No, see, everything comes back to the market, to distribution. Those are all terms of capitalism. Straight up, it's about making dough. Are you writing this book because you want to express an idea? Are you writing this book because you want to make some dough?
Nothing is that simplistic.
Nothing is that simplistic. You need some money to survive.
It's
You know
not,
what I'm
no,
saying?
for a lot of authors, it's not about money.
So you think?
For John A. Williams, it was not about
So Johnny Williams has money. It's different. Johnny Williams is the professor of college. Let me ask you this.
He's a professor of college because he don't have money. If he had money, he wouldn't be teaching.
He's taking them all on.
People want to teach, trust me. They're going to write.
The point they're making. Clarence Major makes $20,000 something just as going to sit in a room 1 day a week. And then he puts out the publication and on poetry and on
You say he teaches for 1 week?
No, he teaches 1 day actually out of Clarence Major. One that does the book, thank you. And Hallelujah. So now he runs out Hallelujah. He has a department, that's why. But he gets a lot of money from doing it. Now he has a lot of time to be a hobbyist. I can article here, or someone like myself, the brother here, probably brother here too. We're trying to make this, all I want to do is wake up in the morning, drink some all that, go out party with my friends maybe, live a little, learn something about life, play my nephew, yell at her at work, come back in, and then do it and write it again. That's it. That's it.
And there's some writers who do that.
And
There's some
if you want,
but I want
to, but exactly, but I want to be able to still buy expensive stuff that I wear, live, eat, not be 20 pounds, gotta buy a corn for dinner. I want to be able to
You
be.
can do that. Lori Nichols doing it.
But you have to make it entertaining.
She doesn't teach on the job.
But my stuff is entertaining. My stuff is quite entertaining.
So you do what you gotta do.
I mean, you got entertainment beyond entertainment's sake, and I agree with that. But yeah, at least present the material in a way that people want to read. If you just writing just to write some abstract bullshit, then you just wasting
Do
my
you
time.
think Brother Williams is writing abstract?
I'm
just curious.
I would never even.
I'm still trying to figure out how we got to the entertainment thing.
Because you know a lot of people talking about making money, but no one's talking about how they're gonna make this money.
No.
People complain about not getting it. You can't complain about not getting it if you're not doing it to not get it. If you're doing it for legacy, because one or two reasons to do this. One or two reasons to hold your copyright. One or two reasons to hold your copyright. One or two reasons. To make money or keep your legacy. That's it. And you decide which
I
one
wanted
it
to
is.
say something about the copyright, but I didn't.
Because
Because I didn't want to get into that.
if you turn to legacy,
But it's copyright. First of all, your copyright, when you write it, it's yours. Technically, it's yours. That means that's legal.
in the world
You
of
mail it to yourself, you don't open an envelope, that's yours, okay? You can go through the formality. I mean, I'm doing a literary journal here, and it really, I think it's good if we get in the habit of copyrighting your poetry, but I think it's a waste of time to do individual poems, because one, your real poet, it doesn't just stay the same, you change it. I mean, then you look at it next week, and it's changing. You just spend $20 to copyright this one version, waste of time. Copyright a chapter, copyright 10 of them at a time, copyright, a manuscript of things. Because first of all, nobody really challenges to steal one poem, to be quite honest, to be just legit. I mean, a whole body of work, yes, but a poem, I think that's stuff that novice writers get hooked into because they're trying to get professional, and that's something that you don't need to spend. So I
want to say though, I write this stuff. I want my nephew and my nieces and hopefully my children, if I ever have any, to be able to know that they have ownership over what I wrote. That's why I do copyright publishing for that aspect. And hopefully make a couple dollars so I can buy dinner tomorrow. And hopefully do that. But in the end, you write first. You write first because you got something to say.
Yeah.
And then you better be able to say it. Hopefully, that's right for yourself, for God, that he want to read it right away. He wants to read it. You want to read it. At least, I mean, not you, but someone out there behind you wants something that you can grasp. Let's read this now. And this can change, this, but somebody wants to write for this. I don't think for anyone. I used to think that shit for a long time. I write for myself. When I woke up and realized this bullshit, I wouldn't be telling you.
Well, yeah, because you know how you feel. You can write to a community.
I wouldn't make it into living. I would vote for my name.
Well, also, yeah, I mean, what makes it work? It's one thing, I just came back from a workshop in Seattle for people who are interested in science fiction, and I was there with Octavia Butler.
David Henderson.
Writers.
David.
And one thing I learned for sure, that once you create, like I was writing work, and I was there with one place. Well, I write my thing, and they're not quite getting a lot of it. You just roll with it. But once you write something, and it's coming out of you, once it's on paper and it's out there, it's out there. You really don't have any control over how your audience, how it's perceived, what they're getting taken away from.
Right and correct.
Yeah.
My father was right and correct. My father was to this day now. He just wrote some stuff for some big church up there. I'm thinking, you think I wrote them pretty. Hopefully they'll get it and they'll use it. They have, I mean, they paid me for it already. They already paid me for it. Hopefully they won't look at it and go, damn, it's not fucking right. But and you hope you write and you stay. You move on. That's what it comes down to. We had a hook up actually because last winter I saw Jay, this guy here, over for our website. But it's a little different from both websites. We update the week.
Oh, that's a lot of work, so how you doing it?
She about to get her getting harassed on Thursday. If all goes
Being
well.
harassed on Thursday?
Yeah.
Oh, you interview,
I mean, I already, she passed the interview already, but I'm ready to prepare that.
what's the name of the website?
Large capital for independent artists.
Did you break the tab?
I'm reading, get my mail. I'm off the place.
Actually, I'm on a TV show out there in Holland right now.
You are?
Something called that's so sad. Sometimes I get attention. This is from a Euro program. The showcase, they took me out. This one in Kika. That's the amount of books. I get the car, so I want to see what's on the website. Called
Slave labor. Which means? At the end of the day, we're supposed to be turning off the tribes and do your stuff. You don't have any Steve working in the debt. Lord, I heard of the
Yes, they are.
What is the website? I'm talking about poetry and writing. And we update daily and weekly. It's like unheard of nowadays. We update usually monthly or bi-monthly. We constantly update pages. Like the throwing newspapers, audio, video, animation, short stories. I want you to submit some poetry.
Good exercise.
Hey, I'm so
So when you get a call, we'll be launching the 21st.
I mean, I need to say.
We do it by issue by issue.
You mind writing out your name? Your name's
What's up? You ready to go?
Oh my God! Are you kidding? Because you know I it's in stay in there. Let me know because I know somebody who will take it in a hurry. Okay, so the panelists are sitting here, is that it?
Ah, I got it. Where are you going?
Thank you.
They're doing a party once it comes out. Oh, you know what? I heard it. I was late for that. July 1st, I mean, the latest one. You have to be so loud. Right, that's my. Actually, I probably want to talk to you guys. She's actually not one there. Someone edited them. I'm only 2 weeks into that. Not a hack. It's called.
They were trying to make
Not a
it
hack.
not a hack.
Thank you.
So we're gonna sit down here, and we're gonna have a, are you gonna participate?
Thank you.
It's not about hip hop, it's about poetry.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
I guess it's my family,
now,
you know, like,
we should have spoken out there. Well, when Steve lit up, that's what really got out.
Only Steve. I'm not Steve, don't worry. I'm asking the same thing.
I was asking, thank you, sir.
You're not getting ready to leave, Sherry? You ready to go?
Now I'm getting ready to move my big bag out.
You can put it here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. It's not as big as you.
We're gonna start out with.
You know how to follow these people from Guyana. My father is East Indian.
Yeah, there's a
A lot.
So the dog, you
Because
can
her
start
mother
driving
is
the
East
truck?
Daddy has 2 jobs. How does walk a
Indian.
man?
I love African women. Madagascar, Ethiopia. The girl my child saying about, she was taller. This is my sister.
Driving a truck for, yes.
So don't
And
do that.
it was still calling her for any job.
I know my okay,
Sit
yes.
in the office and make somebody quit.
Don't ask.
So I think
Also,
that's
give-
what I'm saying.
I'm gonna give you, I don't have a card.
And 10 old? I mean, it's
Tired.
another 20 years, like I said. And the dog is demonstrating.
You know what dumpster means? You know what dumpster means? Listen, that's the good. That means everybody knows.
Put a letter in there.
Like, we definitely gotta talk.
You know, the
We're doing
thing
what I'm
about
saying,
these
so I'm doing this website. And they plan it.
They put out
And
there,
part
how
of
long, years ago, they
start to
announced
put
that
up
we
one
buy,
person.
excuse me, Columbia down in New Orleans. I think it's gonna come out hard next year.
Make sure, business, art, hip hop, and music, and in each section, we update the issues. For independent artists.
I know, but.
Admins. We're not gonna change that. We're not gonna change the contract. No, actually, on this, and what's good about this, it will be actually real content. Like, a lot of times on the website, something like that, it's 93. We won't be doing that. It's 36 people on the site. It's phenomenal.
So it's a big
We're doing that very well, yeah. We're definitely doing issues. You know, it's like a broadcast slash curiosity on purpose. Judge Jackson, we're trying to do it.
So it's kind of DEA for what?
It's need to be more different for the artists. They can go check things out. And it's not regional, it's national. Actually, international.
Well, you know, the thing is, I mean, I didn't like, you know, I mean, I went to ArtNet, you know ArtNet? I went to ArtNet because they wanted to play it.
Well, imagine ArtNet the other day, every day.
It would be interesting. I mean, it depends how things, you know, I think we're really high time with that because the quality of content.
That's what we want to bring to the table.
Because this is the old issue, you know, to really like produce the quality for a long time.
We're all about people.
It still takes a long time.
No, I did it I've been doing this, I thought it was, before the internet was big, in the early 90s, I was doing radio shows, TV shows. And what I learned is that you had a catalog, but it takes part of the process is what we have, to be still the same quality. If you bring the right content, I mean, the production, it all depends on what kind of intent you have. That's what
It wants to be
Well, I see that the
something
lyrics
serious, you know, content.
Yeah, I wanna go back to school.
So it's very complicated.
Right.
And I had a whole bunch of people
That's
working
what,
on
that's
it.
what.
Yeah, but that takes a long time.
Definitely, I just want to talk to you when you guys are dealing with We do it in October. We update every week, every issue.
So call me and you can take me there and show me.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you can tell me what the site is.
What will happen is
So let me see, what's his name?
David Jackson stays here.
Not so in.
Not swim?
Not so in.
Not swap.
Not so in. Yeah, not so. That's me. Better say it. That's Tyrant. Thanks a lot.
Where is she staying?
Right now, he is 101. Forget about the.
So where do you live, Maria? In the city?
Clothing.
You live in Croydon. I've been there.
Did you
Yeah,
smoke that way?
I'm not smoking at all. I mean, I see a cigarette in my hand. I'm not blowing.
No, she's allergic to smoke. She's allergic to make
Yeah, I've been there. It's what's his name? Who's the director of the museum these days?
There's a new guy.
You're Ryan got a little class.
Yeah, no, there's a new guy.
Can I have a conversation over there?
His name is, let me see.
Raymond Patterson, right?
Let's go to, let's step from first to.
What do you do? Do you like the terminal?
Yes.
He's a,
When past.
yes, she is. And I bought her story.
Really?
I know Ryan is from New York when he was here. He was the cultural ambassador.
It's late.
You were going to get the new magazine?
Oh, right. Oh, I know. It's too bad. I mean, it's so hear that. It's quite unfortunate.
So, but we also never really put together a real extra photos. When he was already, I think that it was weird.
I don't know. I mean, it's strange. I mean, he's such a polite, charming man.
No, but
He's got his chance, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that I
love the photography.
Yeah, actually, that's good.
That's what Omar was saying.
Maybe that's
Oh my God. I told that to you.
Yeah, very,
Yeah, well,